Going live, going live, we're going live. My bearded dragon nearly jumped off my chest, so I stood up and nearly choked on my coffee and nearly dropped her. Oh, it's never a dull moment. Good stay. What are we at here? Morning. Oh God, in all Oh God, in all capitals. Hello, hello, Sophia. Failed medic. Yep, that is true. Yes, it is. Rescue Ready Drew Roadside LLC. That's a mouthful. RRDR. Good morning, good morning. Not my typical Banana Foster's black coffee in the morning because I'm out. Unfortunately. For me, it's 3 p.m. here. All right, good late afternoon for you. Sophia, where are you from? Late afternoon, 3. In 6-hour difference, could be somewhere in Europe. Quite delicious. Germany. Oh, that's right. Guten Tag. 9 p.m. here. No, 9 a.m. Yeah. 9 a.m. here as well. 9 a.m. on the East Coast, United States. Time and temperature check. Time is 9:02 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And temperature is approaching 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That was good. Oh, hopefully everyone has a good weekend plan. We got them. Look at Archimedes. She's just plooped. I heard that reptiles can't process fruit sugar. The digestive system is not designed for sugar. My question is it okay to give my bearded dragon a berry every now and then? Rescue Ready Drew says any new... All right, I'm going to hit those 2 questions, guys. A little bit quick. They're not going to go anywhere. 9:05. I give it 5 minutes, and I'll talk about those. Well, Drew, we'll do yours quicker. The answer is yes. And videos coming. I had some other videos planned, and then those snake eggs appeared, which kind of shifted everything. And we'll talk about the eggs and what's going on with them when we get the stream going, and then I'll hit some questions. But Sophia, I'll answer your question in detail. Great question. Here in about a minute, you'll be the first question I hit for the day, so don't worry. And then Drew will just answer your question now without detail, because that's coming in a video. But yes, Drew, the answer is yes. He'll hear say that fruit sugar is a fruit and all right. Okay. Yeah. Good. So yeah, of course they would. We'll talk about that as well. Well, let me, Sophia, I'll go into that question in detail. And then as I'm answering, if I don't hit something or you got like follow-ups, feel free to type them in. No problem. Then we'll get to what I'm going to go on about. All right. It's muted. It's 9:05. So we've given the early birds, the people who are going to come in. So jealous of that Quince monitor. She is. So okay. So I'll talk about that in a minute. Then we'll hit Sophia's question because it's loaded. So Quince monitors are great, by the way. They are great monitors. Great monitors. So Link happened to end up being female, and most female reptiles they take longer than the males to develop, right? Male reptiles, they develop quicker, so they become social faster, more friendly faster, they tame down quicker. And sometimes, that can be a good indication of if you have a male or female when they're a baby, not when they're newborns, because newborns are typically feisty no matter what, just instinct. But when they start getting a little bit of size on them, but are still baby size, if they're not taming up really quickly, you probably have a female. Now there's exceptions, but majority, 99% of the time, means you probably have a female, and that's okay. Because remember, the end position will be the same, but when you are looking at lizards that have 2 decades or more of life, there's time. It's about a year or two lag time. So you have to keep that in mind. But there are benefits to the female. They're smaller. How many giant lizards can you deal with, right? And some females get larger than males, right? We're just talking about the majority, not the small exceptions that happen. So, Link is, if Link would have been a male, would have been super tame already. Would have been spending the day roaming around the house, etc. But she's at the point now where I open the cage, she'll come up the tank. I call it a cage, tank, house, chamber, whatever you want. And she comes right up. She comes right up on my hand. I pick her up. We got a whole routine. I pet her every morning. But we would have been past this stage 8, 9 months ago if it was a male. No big deal. It's all right. I got nothing but time. So, but man, our Quince monitor is great. Now, as babies, they're, especially a female, very timid. So a lot of times, people's reviews on lizards, they'll say, don't get a Quince monitor because they're scared babies. And they are. And these are monitors that grow long first and then put on size, unlike a rock monitor, a savanna monitor, a black throat monitor. Those start bulking up with their size. But Quinces, you'll get that nice long tail for swimming in the water, and then you get that nice long neck, that big beak mouth, and then the body starts putting on size. Love the channel. Keep up the great work. My beardy is a big girl. Yeah, there's so many exceptions. Actually, the largest in-person bearded dragon that I've ever seen was that female bearded dragon, Jack, that I did some videos on that a friend of mine from Texas owns. And she, probably 25 inches almost, just Goliath beardy. So, you don't, so, Junior, when they start getting a lot larger, you don't need to keep the whole enclosure wet. Actually, you can have the complete. So that's only when they're very small. They need that extra humidity to help grow. Their scales are a little bit different. You're only keeping that enclosure that wet for a month or two. After that, you can keep the humidity slightly higher, but you don't need to. You're just having adequate water. Link's enclosure now has completely dry substrate, 100% dry substrate, and just has a big cement mixing tub, really big, and she swims laps in it. That the water is this deep, and she's fully submerged, and she's swimming, and she's coming out just fine. But Quinces, when they shed and when they're a baby that quick, their scales can get stuck. So you have that super humid environment because when they're that small, they're shedding so often that you need it. But that goes away very quickly, so you don't have to worry about that. Now let me get to Sophia's questions, and this could be important. And it's not just related to beardies, but her question here was reptiles, fruit, sugar. Can they eat fruit? All reptiles, but she's specifically asking for a bearded dragon. And then kind of a tag on is people said that sugar is a perfect breeding ground for parasites. What's your opinion? Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. So first of all, the answer is mixed because there are some reptiles that can handle the fruit sugar pretty decently, and then there are others that can't really handle it at all. So leopard geckos, man, people want to feed them a berry and things like that. Very bad. They cannot process that fruit. They are really just a bug eater. and move on. Blue-tongued skinks, bearded dragons, bigger monitors, those can handle low amounts of sugar just fine. Now, the key here is the amount of sugar and how often. Iguanas, they love bananas. They can eat a lot of fruit. Iguanas can eat a lot of fruit. So there are some things that you can happen, and most things can eat a lot of fruit, but there's an intolerance to a lot of that sugar. Typically the worst case you'll get if the thing can eat fruit is diarrhea from the amount of sugar that their body just is going to push through and the amount of moisture in the fruit, which that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, the sugar in of itself does not attract parasites, but there are some things that can happen that are negative to all of them, but particularly bearded dragons because of the jaw structure. We're going to talk about that. But you can circumvent a lot of this by feeding extremely low sugar fruits. Raspberries, one of the best berries because they're probably the lowest in sugar. And blueberries are pretty good too. And so you can cut a lot of that. But so by the way, I feed my bearded dragons all different fruits. Raspberries, blueberries, banana, watermelon. They love extremely ripe mango, and feed them like mango in the cut of like a home cut French fry. So that's 100% fine. Do they need it? No, they absolutely do not need it. But as a treat, it's completely fine. Also, if they're constipated, pumpkin, things like that, that can help push them through. But the thing with bearded dragons, which you have to look out for where the other lizards you don't, is, and you, by the way, you need to look this out before I tell you, for bearded dragons in general. So remember, bearded dragons have top and bottom one giant bone that's jagged for their teeth, right? It's a letter U, right? Socket, socket. No gaps in between. Where other monitor lizards have a tooth, big space, little tooth, big space, little tooth. So what can happen with bearded dragons, if you're feeding something that's very ripe, particularly fruit, when they're eating it, the gap between their teeth and their lip, they can get food up in there. They cannot clean that. And if that food sits there, the sugars, things like that, they will essentially get cavities, will rot their teeth. It's pretty dangerous. It's not the end of the world. In fact, a lot of older bearded dragons, you see them with missing sections of their teeth where the bone rotted and it broke out, doesn't grow back, and they just don't have teeth there. It's very common in older bearded dragons to have them sections of bone missing or all together. So as part of your standard bearded dragon health, you should always be checking their teeth. Dentists for vets, the vets for exotics, they can clean their teeth. They'll sedate them. They'll use hypersonic. They'll get all the tartar off. I mean, you can look at it. Your bearded dragon's teeth should be white. If you see a lot of orange buildup, etc., you got to clean it. You can take a Q-tip, a little diluted chlorhexidine or a little diluted iodine, and boop, boop, brush all their teeth, go around and see if you can clean it up. But yeah, that gap in between is the potential problem. Now, I say potential because you got to know, if you're feeding small little raspberry bits and they go and it's good. Now, I like to feed bananas. I take a bite. I let them take a bite. They go smoosh. And, there's the potential of smoosh getting up in that gap. You just need to check that. It should be part of your health check anyways. It's not like you need to do it that very day. If you do it later on in the day, things like that. When you're feeding them greens, whenever they're eating, they're opening their mouth. You should always be checking their teeth, and you should be checking for food. Good morning, Double Dragon Hotel. Good morning. So, Sophia, absolutely, you can do it. Okay. People are saying good morning. Yes, hi, good morning. Sorry, Double Dragon. There's a lot of people in, guys, from the Discord this morning, which means they're Patreon contributors, which I'm just going to show myself now. If you donate on Patreon as little as $1 a month, which is $12 a year, you come into the Discord. That's really the feature. You come into the Discord. I'm there almost every day. pictures, little video clips, lots of live videos, live feedings, not only of my reptiles, but of the other people's. It's a really good community. It's really good to get good information, ask questions, and then you're in there with people who are in common. It's a friendly place. And we do other things than reptiles. We'll play board games, we hang out. I mean, I really try to donate a lot of time. If I'm driving somewhere far, I'll pop into the Discord and, do voice messages and things like that. So try to give a lot of my time into something like that as a really big benefit. And it's just really fun to be around. All right. Love the train. Yep, 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 yep. My beardy is a big girl. Yeah, Deborah, sometimes you just get giant females and they just are the exception to the rule. We used to, for bearded dragons, we used to see like German giants, which was nothing specific to just Germany, other than the Germans started doing this. And they were just taking the biggest male bearded dragon and breeding it with the biggest female bearded dragon they have to make hopefully bigger babies. Because reptile care in general has gotten so much better with the husbandry, with the lighting, with the feeding, with the exercise, all the nutrition, everything we know, we are getting larger and healthier reptiles, male and female, even without selective breeding, just normal breeding, because the parents are becoming healthier, then the grandparents are healthier, and then the kids are healthier, and then they're breeding with other healthy things, and we're getting really big. So the old weight and the old length charts that are 5 decades old, they're virtually useless. Unfortunately, it's what a lot of people still go on by for knowledge because that's what's there. But if you look at data collected even in the last decade, but particularly even in the last 5 years, we have lengths that are well over the old largest length ever seen. We have weights that are well over. So then when people look at it, they're like, oh, your bearded dragon's obese because they were measured, 40 years ago to only get this big and this long. Okay, well, the female bearded dragons are measured to be 15 inches. Now I have one that's 10 inches longer. Naturally, shouldn't that weigh more? I mean, it's almost double the length that the old weights were with. And we're seeing that with everything. Life expectancy, and it's starting to be updated now, but also life expectancy is wrong. These life expectancies of our reptiles are way longer. So if you look at the whole chart, again, let's go back 5 decades, the life expectancy is very skewed because there were very short life expectancies in the beginning of that chart because people did a bad job taking care of them. So that was one. And then two, we also used just information from the wild to kind of help with that. So you had small life expectancies. Even though this last portion here, the life expectancies have gone up, it's still being degraded by all that beginning data. But if you clip the data, let's say even a decade ago, the life expectancies are way higher because you get rid of all that bad data. You throw out the wild because people have finally realized that it's virtually irrelevant. And you look at, okay, the last 10 years of these things being a pet in great care. I mean, we're seeing potentially the thoughts of bearded dragons hitting 30 years old. Well, before it was expected to be 4 to 6 years. Most charts now put them in their mid teens, but if you cut all that bad stuff up, the mid teens nearly double in length. Now, of course, if you've got a bearded dragon that's 15 years old, you could still be working with those old genes. But if you're looking at this stuff that's been bred in the better care, these life expectancies are getting huge. I mean, some people are starting to predict ball pythons. Forget late 60s, they're predicting maybe late 80s. It's huge. It's big changes. So that's great, but yeah, when you just Google what is the average life expectancy of, and then fill in the lizard, it's looking at so much data, and so much of that beginning data is bad and irrelevant. Okay, do you pay for your rescues or pay to rehome? So the answer to both of those is no, which is kind of unfortunate. I just don't have the money to pay for rescues, and I don't believe it's right when I see people, and it makes this hurts me a little bit, okay? But already I'm going to pay a lot of money to just be housing these things, getting them up and getting them out to good homes. Sometimes people will want to donate, and it's always optional, some money when they're taking a rescue, not even just for their lizard, just for the effort that I'm putting in, which is huge, and that helps a lot. But I I will not pay, and I have to understand that I will not pay for people who have sick reptiles and they're just trying to get rid of them. You, you have to set your rules, and although I could help more reptiles if I just started shilling out thousands of dollars to everyone who's like, I have a sick bearded dragon. He's 2 years old. I'll let him go for $500. Not doing it. Sorry. I mean, it's just, yeah, you can't do it. You can't let yourself get emotionally pulled down a bad hole. My name's Deborah. Maybe that's just a big name. Maybe Jack is just a big name. Sorry says plus they're not taking much versus oh muscle versus fat. Yeah, muscle. No, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, that so sorry. That's actually a great point about the weight thing. A lot of the times, the weight was basically just predicted as fat. However much this thing weighed, that's how much it needed to weigh, no matter what. And if it weighed more than that, it was fat, even if that weight's not coming from fat. I mean, so again, just from the length, we have sure, there'll be more fat, of course, naturally, but you'll have more bones, right? So you have thicker bone density. The bones will be larger, thicker, longer. You'll have more tendons, right? Length. You'll have more blood and you'll have more all those fluids and everything. So, right, we're adding weight. We haven't got to the fat part yet. You'll have more muscle because, again, they're longer. The legs are longer. There's more muscle wrapped around those bones. There's more blood feeding those. Okay. You can say the lungs are bigger. I don't know how much the air would, so let's move that out of there. But then naturally you'll have some more fat, and you need some fat, right? You need that healthy amount of fat, so you'll have more of it because the thing is larger. The brain is bigger, so again, these things are all contributing to weight. So is the weight the problem, which is the old way of looking at the scale, was just said if you're this big you weigh this much, kind of like the BMI for humans, right? If you look at the BMI, which has been totally discredited, every single pro bodybuilder that has zero body fat and rippling with muscles is considered morbidly obese. But they have no fat, but they weigh a lot. So that's why you don't use that anymore. And so with humans, the BMI has been thrown away, garbage, laughed at. We should never have used it. I know some people still like to look at it, but now they do two things that you can do to measure your actual fat index. One is pretty fascinating. They actually come and they pinch the fat around your gut, at your arms, and then they use that to measure how much fat you have, regardless of your weight. Or the other cool thing, they they weigh you in water to just get a weight of just your fat. Wow, shouldn't we be doing that? Like, so if we've realized now, it's probably harder to do with animals, of course, obviously, but we should at least have that thought that we should look at that. You can feel fat, you can palpate fat, you can see fat on an X-ray. And really, with reptiles, you can see fat. You can see if you've got a bearded dragon that looks like a basketball, right? That's almost perfectly round. And then you can see those bearded dragons that, if you've ever watched Family Guy, when like Stewie's on steroids and he's like, I'll just get the remote. And then he like goes like this and his like muscles are rippling and he's got a 12 pack and very just veiny and everything. But you can see that in bearded dragons and in all lizards, right? You can see them when they stand upright and they puff their head up and you see pecs and you see biceps and they're almost rippling, especially males. So Double Dragon Hotel was in here. She has a bearded dragon named Murray. He's like this great red orange color. Dude, he stands up and he like flexes his chest out and you see like all this definition. And that's not fat. So what does his weight matter? It's just an old way of doing it where they didn't know any better and they just said, this is how much it weighs, so this is how much it should weigh. And again, they measured them in the wild. So, they collected 20 bearded dragons, they measured their length, and they weighed them. And then they scaled it all and they took the average and they said, based off of this must be healthy, and there we go. Man, that was pretty flawed, right? Like they've got parasites, if they have limited food, if their bone growth was stunted due to poor nutrition, what does that matter, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. But that was a lot of our that was a lot of how this data came about. And in fact, if you go back and a lot of it came from the UK, not bad. They were studying. They were ahead of people. They went through the wild and they studied. And that was the only data we had. And that's what we did. But if you remember, like, okay, this is like I don't want to get political, but in the US, the term believe the scientists is like a term that's thrown out there a lot. It's the biggest joke, right? Because science is evolving, it's changing. You don't expect people are lying to you with this information. They're just going out and they're saying, here's the information we found. Now that changes. It's not the end all be all. It evolves. We get more data, we look at more things. And so you sometimes and not a lot of people do it. If you look at these studies, they're so old. And the way that we gathered the data was old. And the conclusions we made from it weren't even right at the time. So that's why if you look at the new stuff being done, it's pretty fascinating. Now, with that being said, and actually Sari's in here because she linked a study in the Discord, which was just useless. But it was studying movement of bearded dragons in the wild. This is a new study, and I think they did 40 bearded dragons. And they measured the dragons and they sewed a little cloth tunic on the dragon. And there's like a little GPS tracker in there. And they wanted to study how these things move around, how often they move, how far they move, you would think. Now, the main thing was the weight of this equipment couldn't weigh more than 5% of the beardie's weight. However, they came up with that's the 5% would not affect the dragon. It's got little antennas, whatever. But what they found and their conclusion was bearded dragons that moved around more in the wild lived shorter lives. Now, that's the conclusion of the study. This is like really kind of infuriating because this is a joke. So you go and read the studies. Okay, they did 40 dragons. It's part one. You don't expect, you have to do this in phases, and that gives you a theory, and then you can study more. But then you got into like, well, why? Well, the ones that were moving around, they got killed and eaten. And then they would find them not moving anymore, and they would go find these carcasses. You can look up the study, bearded dragon moving around. It's very recent, within the last couple months. So that's so dumb. And that shouldn't have even been what the study was doing. We should have just studied how big is like a bearded dragon's territory. How often do they? Because remember when people say, "Oh, well, you need a huge enclosure because your bearded dragon needs to walk around and blah blah blah." How far do they actually walk in the wild? How far do they walk daily? How far do they walk yearly? Do they actually do that? Instead, we just found that the ones that did travel a little far would get eaten. But the conclusion was of the study, the more the bearded dragon moves, the sooner it died. Now, some thoughts came about of this vest, and that's a big problem to me. Because, maybe the bearded dragon can't camouflage as well. It's got little antennas. Maybe it can't shed as well. If it can't hide as well, maybe it was seen by predators more easily. It was a stupid study. I'm sorry. It was stupid. Read the study, and this is being used for data, and the people are cheering that these people did this. And it was pointless. The conclusion they came to was wrong. What they were looking for was wrong. And then they're like, we're going to do this on more reptiles and stuff. And I'm like, stupid. not even looking for the right thing. It's not a bad theory if you just want to say, I want to collect data on their natural movement. Where is their territory? Did two males stay away from each other? Did they get close to each other? Was there a certain range when males were getting closer that they turned around? Like, what was their, did they go in groups? Did we see females stay closer together than the males? Now they don't maybe stay right on top of each other, but they stay within a mile radius. Like, there's, oh my God, there's so much good information that this study could have potentially looked for, and they had no clue what they were doing. And who knows how many millions of dollars they got paid to do this. But that's another example of a bad study, someone who didn't know what to look for, things like that. It could have got it, very empty, and looked for the wrong things and too soon on a conclusion. But they had so much potential, Ivy, to get so much good data gathered. And I just listed some topics. If I would have sat down with a group of people and we said, hey, we've got small GPS trackers now, we can track them for 6 months. I think that's a good amount, especially as the weather's changing, maybe even a year. And what data should we be gathering? What data? Herds, sleeping close together, sleeping by water, going in the water. How long do they actually really bask during the day, right? We know the area they're in is sunny, but look, they were here at this hot spot for an hour, and then they were in the shade the other 9 hours of the day. That would just have been perfect data. Nope. Just, they walked around and they got eaten. Oh, breakthrough study. You gotta be kidding me. Territory, movement. Oh, another great thing. Adults versus juveniles, absolute male versus female, super elder. I mean, just incredible. They all went to this area to eat. What's in that area? Oh, it's rich in bugs, or oh, it's rich in this type of plant. I mean, God, the amount of data, and that's just off the top of my head, the amount of data could have been incredible. Instead, we got a completely useless study, again, joke, and the people are being hailed as breakthrough scientists. Great. Just great. Let's go down the list here. Yeah, bearded dragons are prey, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Music in the background. Okay, let me. I'm gonna get off on my. That's when I get on my rant, and I just am so sad because then these people are like, "This is a reptile expert," and I sit here like, why? Now I only hope most people like us read the study, but I don't think this is what happens. And one is a study should always lead to questions, right? It should be the theory. So the question should, and no matter what, it should always be, we need more data, always, but come up with something. Why were the bearded dragons that moved around, and they didn't even answer this question, why were the bearded dragons that moved around more, why were they eaten? Were they juvenile? Were they older? Were they a certain color? Were they being eaten in a certain area? So forget the amount of movement, which was stupid. Did they get eaten when they went to a rocky field where they had no grass? Did they get eaten because they went by a watering hole? Like, you had so many good questions. So let's say they got eaten on a rocky plain. Well, if a bearded dragon is far away in a forest and then he moves to the rocky plain and he's eaten. Now, their goal is, wow, he got eaten because he moved far. Okay? Now, what if the bearded dragons were like at the edge of the forest and moved a little bit and went onto the rocky plain and got eaten? So was it the distance or was it the area they moved into? Nope, the distance. But they both got eaten when they entered the certain area. So what's the common denominator? The area, not the distance. I mean, just such a flawed study. I mean, by an idiot, it seems like. I don't know the person, but like, you had to have sat down here and should have had your Venn diagrams, the two circles, and then they overlap, and here's different and this is different. And then, oh, but here's the same. I mean, where did these basic things go away? Or, like the question from the DC, and, there's a picture of the Girl Scouts in the middle, but you have the cork board with all the pictures and then the red string and they're all, what happened here? None of that was done. I shouldn't call anyone an idiot. My bad, because I don't know anything about them personally. The study was idiotic. The way it was done was idiotic, and the conclusions made was idiotic. Personally, they might be great people. That was flawed. All right, let's see here. There is a lot of variables to include in a study. It probably would have taken. So Drake, you're absolutely correct, obviously. And that's why studies typically, people want quick results, right? We want instant satisfaction. I just ordered something from Amazon and it's going to take 3 days instead of my typical same day, 1 day, or 2 days. Now, for me, it kind of sucks because it's a project I want to do on the weekend. But I'm like, ugh. So you're right. Instant gratification is a big thing. And I know sometimes studies are pressured to get some instant, but that's why you release preliminary findings, or you get the ongoing data. So you can give a sample and you can say, hey, and you have to set a time frame. That's why I said like maybe 6 months, and be like, the data we've gathered so far over 6 months is trending like this, but we're going to collect this data for, I don't know, about a decade. I would say a year. But I think 2 years is good. And I'll tell you why. Because the climate, you hit the different weather. So how did they move in the summer compared to how they moved in the other seasons? And then you do another year to see if the data correlates, right? But then you obviously would have to keep going, because then you can really see. Now you kind of mitigate this a little bit by putting it on ones of different ages, because, to track and everything. But you're right. Like the longer it's studied, the more information you gather, for sure, and the more accurate your end goal can be, your result, which is a big deal. All right, I've ranted 37 minutes. You guys bombarded me with questions, and I didn't get to the questions from the comments. I got to hit some of these questions from this month. If you guys are new to the live stream or you forget the thing, so right, the last numerical Saturday of the actual month. So as we know, it's not the last day of the month, but it's the last Saturday in this month. I do a live stream, so 3 videos, sometimes more, sometimes some YouTube shorts, and I gather the newest, most relevant comments that keep getting asked. And then at that 4th video, I answer those in live stream format. So if you watched a video, even an older video, and you want a dialogue to help understand, or you got a question from it, you pop into the live stream and you can ask your question or interact, and that's where I go through. Or if you just have a completely new question, boom. But I do try to gather the relevant, because I can't sit there and type answers to comments. I think I'm getting something like 20,000 comments a day spread through all the videos. It's too much. It's too much. So this, and some of these guys, it's okay if they're repeats. I ask them a lot, because also it's hard for people to go back and reference. There's a lot of videos. There's a lot of live streams. It's not a big deal. So don't feel stupid or scared to ask a question that maybe you think is obvious, or maybe you think has been asked before. You're just asking for my opinion on things. That's just what I'm giving you. But these get hit a lot, and they're pretty basic questions. But I think Google gives really bad answers to these, and so do people's videos, especially if someone is a breeder of something. Now, I've given some clues. What is this? What is the best pet lizard to have for a beginner? That's right. This gets asked all the time in some form. And by the way, a lot of the times I combine the questions. So it's not like it's asked like that. People typically ask, let's say I make a video on my blackthroats. Is the blackthroat a good first reptile? Is the bearded dragon a good first reptile? So I'm combining all those into what is the best lizard? Boom. Or best reptile. And I kind of separate reptiles between snakes in a category, and lizards in a category because their care is different. So what is the best snake? Look, we're going to hit this first. Hands down, sorry, it's a ball python. It's just, it is what it is, right? Super friendly, size, temperament. It's a ball python. Now there's pluses or minuses, and there's other snakes that are friendly. They get hit. It's a ball python. There are friendly large snakes. There are friendly smaller squirmy snakes. The ball python, if you were to list all the categories, is at the top of all the categories. Doesn't mean it's the very best snake for you, specifically customized, but generally speaking, which is what we're doing, it's a ball python. Simple, boom. Now, I'm not going to go into super details. If you've got questions, you always DM me on Instagram, things like that. Why? Or you can customize more for your specific needs. Because if you were to ask, well, what's the best snake that gets at least 15 feet long? It's no longer a ball python, right? Or what's the best snake that only gets this big? Or what's the best venomous snake, right? It's no longer a ball python. But generally speaking, the ball python is the best pest snake anyone can get. Okay. Lizards. Shoo, goodbye, snake. Hello, lizards. I want. There's not as clear of an answer, unfortunately, but I'm going to just rattle off what I would say are the top 3, and then you can choose from there, or you can ask for in-depth on their own. It is, well, and one is generic, but typically the species is, and in no particular order, the rock iguana is one of the best lizards, which that has a few Cyclura, Lewisite hybrid, Cayman brack, rhino, Cuban rock. That's in one category. The rock monitor, which factors in blackthroats, whitethroats, or savanna monitors. And then the bearded dragon, which also could factor in Rankin's dragons, etc. Those are the 3 categories of lizards that I would say are at the top, rather than listing one of those, because those are much more different. And there's way more lizards. And again, if you pick the rock, let's say you pick the rock monitor, and now you've got some in there, then you can really narrow down. And same thing with the rock iguana, and then same thing with the bearded dragon. There's some things like chakwalas and stuff like that that are still in that category. And then we can go into that. But those are the 3 top categories for lizards without going super in depth, because I've done it a lot. And again, you can reach out to me. But those are the top 3. And then you customize. You customize based on size, based on what you feel comfortable with feeding, right? Bugs, meat, veggies, mixture, price. So there's a lot of that you go in and you get. And also male or female, right? Because that affects size. Same thing with snakes. So hopefully that's a nice general way to kind of hit that. And then you can dive into that, and then you can pick from those exactly what customizes to you. Why did I only say ball python? Because females still get pretty large, males get smaller, and it just wins all the other categories, minus a few things that customize. How often, so this gets asked all the time, am I feeding too much? Am I feeding too little? How much should I feed? So this is, again, it's a general thing, guys, but this is based off of the lizards you have. And there's a general rule of thumb that actually gets mentioned often, but people don't customize that for their lizard. So a lot of people would say, hey, just offer food daily. You got to be very specific with that, because if you have a rock monitor, right? So if you have a savanna that would eat 100 bugs a day, you cannot offer that thing food daily, because that thing will eat it daily, and that thing will become very unhealthy. There are other reptiles that can, not necessarily should, but can eat daily healthily with the right food, like bearded dragons. And typical rule of thumb is to offer your bearded dragon food every single day, not bugs, once they're adults. When they're younger, bugs is fine every day. It's actually encouraged now, heavily encouraged. But so you need to know the reptile you have. and make sure you're on the right feeding schedule and the right type of food. There is no type. Larger geckos, gargoyle geckos, things like that. They can't eat. They'll eat, but they should be eating every 3 adults. Slider, turtles. Turtles are psycho, right? I have Big Bertha here. She's gonna push 40 years old soon. She would eat every single day, probably as much food as I threw in front of her. They eat like crazy. She would die very quickly. She wants to eat every day. She would eat every day. She's not allowed to eat every day. And you got to think about it from your perspective of me, right? I love cheesecake. I don't know how much I could eat, but man, if you put some cheesecake in front of me every day in a good amount, I'm probably going to try my hardest to eat all of that cheesecake every time it's in front of me. Not good. I'd be bigger than a beach ball, right? So, but man, I would like doing it. So you have to teeter that with them, and that's what you need to understand. There is no end all or be all of offering. But like I said, bearded dragons, if they're adults and you're feeding them greens mostly every day, offer them greens every day. They may not eat every day, or they may eat a little one day, they may eat a lot one day, but they are a safe lizard to offer them their correct diet every single day. Okay, let's check the chat. So that's just what's good to know. Okay, blah 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 blah. Hognose, they are great little noodles, unless you're wicked. I'm so tempted to save space and put my male and female dragon chicks next to each other. Do you think that could work? Hognoses, yes. Are they friendly as balls? So hognoses are typically friendly. They're smaller snakes, and they look so cute. We always have to bring in the potential problems with wild animals, even with dogs, right? If your own little chihuahua bites you, it's possible your cat could scratch you. A pit bull that's yours and accidentally gets pissed at you and bites you, you got more damage than if a chihuahua accidentally bites you. Hog noses, people are scared because they're venomous, right? Hog noses have rear fangs, so the fangs are in the very back of their mouth, the last set of teeth, and those fangs have venom sacs. So they have to bite you. They have to bite you deep, not nip you like a normal venomous snake would. And then they have venom. They have extremely mild venom. Now, you have to say that with a grain of salt, because if you are highly allergic to their extremely mild venom, it still will be very bad for you. So you have to take that. You have to understand that. And I think they're great they're great snakes though. They just look cute. Their face is all smushed. It's like those bulldogs that are just all wrinkles and everything. That's a hog nose. Just that is all. I'm so tempted to save the space, put male and female dragons. So I have had my male and female tanks on the same shelf right next to each other and just a piece of cardboard. You've all seen it, that one little spot that I didn't have covered, and Johnny Cage is up there constantly just staring down like a creeper. You can look at the video of the females in the tank next to him. Archimedes' tank is right next to Mongo. It's been there their whole life. Again, there's just a piece of cardboard that completely doesn't let them see. I actually think for most of the time it would be okay, even if they could see each other. The only problem comes in is there will come a time where it's that time of the year where hormones start flying, and the male is going to want to mate and the female is going to want to be mated, and there's just glass. So next to each other, I always find fine. Visual blocker was all I needed. Now, the females next to each other, no blocker, everything's fine. My Savannah is right, Drake. See, it's like a perfect thing. You can't feed your Savannah. Excuse me. You could feed him, 50 plus roaches every day. That'd be very bad for your Savannah. I mean, even when I come to feeding meat, like Apollo especially, I could probably feed him unlimited chicken. He'll eat it and he'll love eating it. And then his stomach, he acts sick for multiple days. Sometimes he'll throw up undigested chicken. And so I have to feed him a very small amount, even though he still wants to eat more, because I know what's going to happen. And in his brain, he can't control himself. So it's very important to know that. When I first got my Beardy, the vet found a mass. They did an MRI and said she didn't think it was an egg. The day of surgery, they called me. Scan showed mass was gone. Yeah, Kelly, absolutely. So, and I've hit this before, and this is very important. And it probably wasn't egg because it was gone. Remember, with females, you have three outcomes basically. Well, you have multiple, and I've talked about this with eggs, but they'll have follicles that can develop, right? And then these follicles can either be reabsorbed or turn into eggs. Let's say it's infertile eggs. We know parthenogenesis can happen. It happened to me, blah, 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 blah. So now let's say they've turned into eggs. That's when you'll see them. Those eggs have two outcomes. The eggs can be reabsorbed. The body says, hey, there's no male. They're not fertile. I'm sucking these things back in. I'm going to absorb the calcium. It's very healthy, and that happens probably every single year with female dragons that are not laying eggs. They develop the eggs unless they absorb the follicles, and they reabsorb them. Very healthy and normal, and how it should work. Or the body says, hey, these eggs, I'm going to just lay them. And it chooses to lay them. Now, when it chooses to lay them, they can get egg bound and blah, 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 or they can just lay them. But so, yes, you can have eggs. You can have a single egg, and it can be sucked back in. Natural process, probably what it was. Double Dragon Hotel has donated $20, which is so amazing. Double Dragon Hotel, for anyone who doesn't know, is a very good bearded dragon keeper, a very good reptile keeper. Doesn't make a lot of videos, unfortunately. Used to make more videos. They weren't the super manic videos. They were just very educational videos, which is so important because we don't have a lot of people that do that. But she's also was my very first Patreon follower. And actually, she was the only reason I really made the Patreon, was her telling me to. So you cannot get more OG than her. So just show her love if you want to go to her channel and subscribe if you want to watch her content. She has a really cool bearded dragon that has no back legs. Damn, I thought this stream was about lizard people. Like, oh, come on, man. No, it's not about. Leave that poor man alone. What is? Oh, good God. Okay, it's almost time for the chat or the live stream to end. Let's grab another question from this. Okay. So I'm going to combine a bunch together here. But again, everyone always asks, like, what type of size tank? What should their husbandry be like? Do they need UVB? And I wish there was an easy answer here, but there really isn't. Again, it's super specific, guys, so you have to become specific. But also, there's not an end-all, be-all. There's some, let's look at bearded dragons. They don't need a large tank. They can be in a 3-foot-long tank their whole life. But some bearded dragons end up wanting to be more active. Some just want to slouch around and bask all day. Others want to swim. Others want to climb. So I would, and same thing with snakes. Let's look at ball pythons. You have certain ball pythons that, I should say that. Ball pythons typically been recorded, live their longest and their healthiest in rack systems. I think it's less stress for them. But they have done pretty good in smaller enclosures that still have a very tight hide, and that's the key, to have a tight hide in there. And people will look at small enclosures for ball pythons, but this is too small. It needs to be this big. It needs to be this big. Maybe you have a ball python that likes being a big enclosure. I've put ball pythons in 4 foot long enclosures, 3 foot tall enclosures. They sit in their hide all day. They come out for a little bit, they go back in. What is that big enclosure doing? Nothing. I've monitored them at night when they're supposed to be most active, but then I've had other ball pythons that don't sit in their hide and instead coil up and sit in a corner of their big enclosure. What's that about? I have big 6 foot enclosures for my boas. My boas go in the corner and they wedge themselves into the smallest little coil you've ever seen. Why? Go up on the basking shelf. Go here, go there. No, it's just how they want to lay. It's fascinating. Now there comes a point where a snake is so big it doesn't really work. But if we look at and guys, I'm sorry, this is the most well-known that has big enclosures, right? Brian Barczyk's channel at the Reptarium. Saw these big snakes, these giant enclosures. Let's look at Ivy, giant retic. Half the time she's coiled in a 2 foot by 2 foot coil in the water bowl or in the corner. She's like a 15-foot enclosure. Doesn't use any of it. And sometimes that's with them. So you don't know. I saw Cupcake, their big red-tailed boa, coiled on the ground, even though it's a big enclosure with branches and stuff. It's for that reptile. But then other times you do see snakes that are out and stretched around. So there's not a simple cut and paste answer. There really isn't. If you got a smaller enclosure and you see your reptiles trying to be more active or trying to climb or doing this or doing that, then you can get it big. Sometimes, though, again, you can know this. So you can take your reptile, put it in a large enclosure, and then you see it's not doing as well. It doesn't eat. It doesn't like it. Why doesn't it like it? Maybe because it's black on the walls instead of white, or it's not glass, or this or that. Who knows? They're crazy, man. They're crazy. They're so personable. They got mind of their own. So it's good. You have to understand those things. I can't just say, oh, you're getting this. This is the minimum size and the maximum size, and it needs this many hides and it needs this many platforms. It doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, I wish it did, because that would make it much easier. Monica, you said something, then you retracted it. Very good. What did you say? No idea. Keep up the good work. But yeah, there's no cut and paste answer. That's the big deal. There's no cut and paste answer. Okay, let's keep here. Here's the one. This is a common. Can lizards recognize you? Do they actually understand who you are? And the short answer is absolutely yes. In fact, even smaller lizards, absolutely yes. Now, to what level they recognize you is very debatable, but there's a much different reaction, even my turtles, when I walk in the room to, oh, this is the guy who, let's say at worst case, this is the guy that feeds us. Let's say that's the most basic reaction. They react to that. Other people walk through the room, they just look at them. They don't try to come up, they just look at them. So and you'll see that too with their lizards. So if that's the most basic reaction that you want to take from it, it's fine. It still means they recognize you, but they just recognize you as the feeder. Other people want to say, this is, my dad or mom. He's so friendly. I love him. I want to be with him. I want to cuddle with him. I feel safe with him or her, blah, 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 blah. But for sure, they recognize you. At the most minimal, the guy who feeds and cleans the poop up and does this and does that. And at the maximum, complete understanding of who you are and, like or hate you. That's what it is. Good morning. Oh, good morning, Yumi. Who do you have out with you? Oh, Archimedes is out this morning. She happened to be awake this morning, so I put her out, but we've been out for about an hour and a half because I had her out before the stream, and I think she's starting to get a little fed up. But I'm going to plow through these last questions before we end this up. Meanwhile, at Marty the Beardy is a non-educational. That is a very non-educational channel, and that is if you go there, you will see an overweight bearded dragon, morbidly obese, severely oversaturated, severely overhydrated, very dehydrated at the same time, extremely skinny, lots of wrinkles, and underfed. Thank you. And if you can't tell, those things all contradict each other. And that is the wonderful world of Reddit and Facebook reptile experts. If you want to know anything about reptiles, do not go to Reddit and do not go to Facebook. Thank you. Oh gosh, that's too funny. Okay, and so I got one other question from the videos that I'm going to go through, but this is going to be like last call. If you have a question, shoot it in, and I can hit it up before I end the stream. Can be about anything, so you can throw it in there. And yeah, okay. So how do you know if your reptile is sick or not? That gets asked all the time. And it's an important question to ask. And I think people are really asking this because they care about it. And what are you going to do? Just kamikaze off? Is that what you were going to do? So is your reptile sick or not? Great question. Asked all the time. How do you know if they're sick? Blah, 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 blah. Here we go again with there's no clean answer, as you notice with most of my questions that I get asked. Because though, and this is what's very unique for reptiles, because unlike humans, how do you know if you're sick or not? And I'm going to use a baby, for instance, because obviously as an adult, as a human that speaks, you can tell someone, I don't feel good. My chest hurts. My ear hurts. My eyes hurt. I have a headache, right? Like I don't feel right. Simple. You can say that. But now let's look to a human baby. Yeah, okay, it can cry sometimes, but there's signs we need to look for that we know still point to it, which is not fair. Does the baby have a fever? The baby can't tell us it has a fever, but we can take the baby's temperature and we see it has a fever. Ha, okay, so now we know. So push that aside. Well, what about reptiles? Doesn't work like that. Wah, wah, wah. So, okay, so the most number one thing that you see is it's going to be the reptile's behavior. That's right, because when they're healthy, they act differently than when they're sick, right? Wrong. What? I know. This is the only part that sucks about reptiles is a lot of the times we do catch the illnesses too late. Why? Well, my sick bearded dragon slept all day. Good. But wait, my healthy bearded dragon does that too. Because people will say, is it lethargic? Is it active? My sick bearded dragon didn't eat today. Must be sick. It's not eating. But wait, my healthy bearded dragon didn't eat today either. Okay, so that's gone. Wait, my sick bearded dragon hasn't pooped in 4 days, a week, 2 weeks. Aha! Constipated, blockage. No, wait, my healthy bearded dragon does that also. So now, right, so we're hitting our problems with most lizards. Their behavior that they do when they're healthy is nearly the exact same behavior they can do when they are extremely unhealthy, sick, dying. Great. So what do we do to know? There is a way to know. It's a little bit harder. You have to know your individual lizard. Forget the breed. You have to know your individual lizard and how it behaves when it is healthy, which can be sleeping all day, which can be pooping once every 2 weeks. You have to know that compared to something drastically changing. Now, just because something changes doesn't mean it's sick, but that's going to be your first sign to be on alert. So if you have a bearded dragon that is pooping every day and then decides to not poop for 2 weeks all of a sudden, now we have to look at that. Could it be healthy? It absolutely could. But that's your first sign to be on alert is now does it, when it finally poops, is the poop healthy? Is there blood? Is it too dry? Is it too wet? What's going on? Right? So you have to look at those things. My bearded dragon is active every single day. Oh, now it's sleeping every day. Okay. Again, it's a change in behavior, but the behavior that it's changing into is not necessarily unhealthy behavior. So that's why just a change in behavior is not necessarily means that they're sick. So I have a lot of bearded dragons that sleep for most of the day, especially as they get older. So you really need to know your reptile and what could go wrong and start doing it. The biggest thing to look out for, guys, the biggest thing for all reptiles is weight loss, and especially fast weight loss. Now, there's things you can look at: sunken fat pads, right? You'll see that before weight loss. Shriveling tail. Where do they store their fat, right? Sunken in eyes. Those are unhealthy things, but those things tend to reveal themselves at the tail end, which means you've missed it, which it's very easy to miss. So you really need to know your reptile and how it acts. And I know this is weird, but you'll get a feel. So you will know when they act kind of in distress, when they're not looking good. Not because they're not eating, not because they haven't pooped in 2 weeks. You will know. You'll look at them in the face and you'll know something is wrong. And it's just the truth. It honestly is just the truth. Thank you very much for caring about these little guys. Longtime follower. I just want to say I love you. Thanks so much, Monica. That means a lot. How's Mongo doing? So, Kelly, Mongo is doing very well for his super advanced age. Uh, you know, I've talked about Mongo before. His grandpa, right? We don't know his exact age because we don't know about the very first keeper. We know about myself and the keeper before me, who was a friend of mine at the time, where how long she had them, how long I had them, and we know what the first keeper said. So Mongo he's anywhere from 14 to 16 years old. So that is a good span of age. And so he's old. He's getting very old. And so there's things that I have to do. So he eats a lot of bugs because I have to keep weight on him. He was losing a lot of weight. So I have to keep food on him often. I do supplement him with you know, mixed bearded dragon food with a little medicine in it every once in a while to make sure he stays hydrated. I do soak him more to make sure his poops are good. He does eat greens still, but not a lot. So, he's old. We're going to take care of him, and he's going to be very comfortable for as long as possible. You just need to know these things. And yes, Yumi is a good point, like I said, on weight. One of the things we can measure is weight, but there are times where weight changes healthily and goes down, which you need to understand. For instance, a bearded dragon, again, this is healthy, that poops 2 to 3 weeks, once every 2 to 3 weeks. Sorry is in here. He will take a massive poop and lose a lot of weight, and you weigh the poop, and that's where it is. Brumation, they don't eat for a long time. They lose a lot of weight. It's healthy. So potentially lose a lot of weight. Actually, they can go through brumation and lose almost nothing. So there are times where weight loss, even slightly drastic weight loss, is actually also healthy. But you need to measure and you need to understand, because then if every brumation you expect him to lose 50 grams, that's the trend at least. If all of a sudden he loses 200 grams during a brumation, whoa, wait, why did it spike down? Could be healthy, could be, but maybe it's not. And then, you want to have things checked out. And again, maybe he loses, 20 grams when he poops every 2 weeks. All of a sudden, he's lost 30, 35. Again, could be healthy, could not be. So those are things that you want to know about. And they don't mean they're unhealthy. They just mean, hey, we need to verify that's still healthy. Okay. Let's see what we do. Where are we going here? How are the snake eggs? Let's talk about the snake eggs. So as we know, Tetra laid 11 eggs. Technically 9 had embryos in them, or at least embryos that I could see. It wouldn't shock me if they all did. 3 of them were slugs. Now 2 of the slugs, I couldn't see anything. One of the slugs, which was just smaller than a golf ball, had an embryo and had veins in it, but it was not a fully formed egg. The snake can't develop in that kind of egg. It's too small. The air pocket's too small. The egg is too small, so that it had no chance. So you knock 3 off right away. Now, so that meant 8 had the potential to get the embryo to really latch and start growing. Very low chance because it's parthenogenesis. These are weaker embryos. They don't have any male genes. And to really be healthy when developing, they need the mixture of the mom and the dad. So the dad gene seems to make them strong, very strong. So even if you get a female snake, you still have genes from the dad in there. So we were at 8 that were fully formed, put eggs with embryos in them. 2, the embryos didn't make it. The eggs started to go bad, to be expected. So we're at 6. We are 11 days in. I'm incubating at 88 degrees Fahrenheit. There's a fan in there. The humidity is perfect. I've got 4 temperatures set up all around this thing. And we'll see what happens. I would be very happy with 1 hatch. That would be very exciting. Anything over that, cool as well. I plan on keeping 1, and I will probably go to some trusted Discord members first after I see these babies are healthy. You're going to be getting a normal female ball python. Can only be female. So there's no risk here because they're clones. Now, most parthenogenesis do not make it. In fact, even ones that give live birth, they typically die a month or 2 in. And so then you see what makes it. Now, egg birth, if they make it that 2 months in the egg and the egg hatches with a live snake, you're also typically good. So we'll see what happens. I never see my beardy drinking. A lot of the times you don't. Reptiles don't sweat, so they burn through water extremely slow. So most of the time, wet food is enough to get them the moisture that they need. Hi, brother. One question. Do you recommend power feeding? I don't recommend power feeding anything. Some have found not problems, but I recommend slow, healthy growth in everything because it also just gives you more bonding time, honestly. And your lizard or snake is going to spend most of its life with you at its full adult size, whether that's super big or still small. So you should kind of cherish the baby size because it doesn't stick around long, and before you know it, it's gone, and then they're just big. So there's no reason to power feed it out of that unless you're a certain YouTube channel with a reptile zoo that's not Brian Barczyk that power feeds everything you have. That way they look massive. Now that you're talking about, yeah, it's very complicated. I need 3 symptoms if they are, yeah. Kitchen scale of sanity. Yeah, that's true. At Yumi depends on the weight going in. A 400 gram drag includes up to 40 grams. A 200 gram. Yep. Good point. Yumi pre-poop Marty at the vet 482. When he got home 457. Yeah, that's a 30 gram fluctuation. like that. Boom. And if you didn't weigh him when you got home from the vet that day, and let's just say he didn't eat, there's the potential of the next time you weighed him that his weight loss could have been greater than 30 grams. Even though 30 grams was the poop, he could have lost easily another 5 or 10, and then you would have seen a 40 to 50 gram weight loss. That's why you just need to look at the behavior. You don't need to weigh the physical poop, right? If you look at your creature and they took a massive dump with massive urate block there, you just know there's some weight to that, okay? I'm not saying let it harden. Although if you let it harden, actually some of that moisture will evaporate out, so the poop itself will not weigh as much. But you can know that there's some weight loss in that, okay? Same thing if they lay eggs, right? So you just need to know. At Yumi, yes, this is what you just explained to us. Many general rules cannot be universally applied. Yeah, but just because the rules can't be universally applied, everything you do want to make note of all the things that are happening and changing. Because again, remember, then your standard of health could just change. So when he was younger, they were pooping every day, healthy. Now he's older and he's pooping every week or 10 days, healthy. And now this is the new normal. So now this comes into category A, and the old category A is gone. So you do need to look at everything and make note of what is happening, because that change could just be changing into a new normal. And that's what's important, is to know the new normals. So it's very good, Yumi. Very good observations. Very good to do the weight. Very good to do all of that. Very good, because you want to make log of the new normals. Do you have enclosures ready for the baby snakes? So do I have it ready already? Ready already? No, I do not have it already set up. I have an enclosure they could go into when we're getting closer. So we're looking at gestation 55 to 60 days. And probably halfway through the week, I will recandle the eggs. And now these eggs that are there are big, they're fully puffed, they're good looking. And to make sure the embryo is still going good, they've latched on. And then I'll kind of know, because I'm going to keep the babies, when they're newborn, hatched together in the same enclosure, to monitor them and everything. And then we'll go from there. So but if 8 hatch, it's going to be much different than if 1 hatches. So I will have something ready for if and when, before they come out. So don't worry. Fair enough. Very good question. Gauge their food based on their poop. So one, so the typical rule of thumb is you could, but this isn't even true, because again, it's individually based. But you should always know their poop. Their poop for your reptile is probably one of the best ways to tell how healthy they are, and it's still not a cut and paste one. But there's one portion of it doesn't really smell. But then there is a clear thing you can do. You can do a fecal. So are there parasites? Sometimes you have a lot of parasites with no smell. Typically, the more parasites, the smellier the poop. You do a fecal on a baby and you see a lot of parasites, especially bearded dragons, you deworm and you get rid of the parasites, your baby's more energetic, your baby's growing much faster, much healthier. That's just what it is. You want to get rid of the parasites. There's no healthy amount of parasites. They don't need parasites. A lot of them do get parasites right as they're born, because if the mother bearded dragon has parasites, when she lays the egg, it's all going through her cloaca and everything, parasites that are in her body get attached to the outside of the egg. When the baby bearded dragon hatches, on its way out of the egg, it comes into contact with and is infected with those parasites. Not 100% of the time, but high, 99% of the time. Now, if the mom is parasite free, your babies will not have parasites. So your baby bearded dragon now becomes infected with parasites, and it will slow the growth, etc. You get rid of them, you'll have a much healthier bearded dragon. A bearded dragon without parasites, there's no safe amount, there's no right amount. A bearded dragon without parasites is a healthier bearded dragon. Just what it is. But a lot of them have parasites because of that birthing process I described. And if you don't do it, your mom can easily get parasites very quickly. Blah, 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 blah. That too at double draft. Okay, the last thing I'm going to hit, because I got to go, is the whole parasite bearded dragon controversy. And I'll probably do a video on this because there's a lot of misunderstanding. But yes, a lot of beardies, babies, they're not born with parasites, to be clear, because that's the misconception. They are born parasite free, and on their way out of the egg can come in contact with the parasites on the outside of the egg, which were the mom's parasites. And then the baby is so weak immune system wise, it can be easily infected with parasites. Also, when you're feeding bugs to a baby, which is what you should do, especially crickets, there's a high chance those bugs have parasites. Is what it is. Crickets eat their own poo, they drink their own pee. They eat each other's poo and drink each other's pee. So you have a high chance of feeding them something with a parasite. And remember, they're babies. Their immune system is developing. Um, it's unfortunate because reptiles, they don't have the benefit of a human baby that is going to be drinking breast milk, which is going to get all these extra antibodies and these antibodies, from the mom's breast milk to boost their immune system when they're fragile. Reptiles don't have that. So they are very susceptible to things when they are babies. Now, the misconception is that parasites are safe or there's a healthy amount. Not true. It's not true at all. It's completely false. In fact, when the bearded dragon has any level of parasite, its immune system is actively fighting against that parasite to get rid of it the entire time. Now, the truth is, and this was the misconception, when the bearded dragon has a low level of parasites, you do not see many negative side effects. Sometimes you don't see any because there's not enough to be causing that a negative to be seen right away. And so that's the misconception of there's a healthy amount or there's a safe amount. No, they're all bad, but you may not notice what they're doing because there's not enough to be making it noticeable yet. Like, this is, I tell people, so if you've got a chandelier with 15 light bulbs, okay, and one light bulb burns out, okay, is there still light in the room? Yeah. But is it less light? Yes. But there's still enough to see. And then, is two burn out? Okay. Again, there's less light, but people will say, well, there's still enough light in the room. The room is still plenty bright. They're acting fine with those parasites, but are they doing bad things? Yes. So as you're losing those lights, you could still say there's plenty light in the room. You could still say I can see, but technically, is there less light? Yes. Now, what is the downside health-wise? So now you're taxing your bearded dragon's immune system to keep those parasites at bay. And that makes it susceptible to other infections because its immune system is working 24/7 to get rid of these parasites. It's also very easy for those parasites to have a boon and grow and spread and infect. Not good. Not good at all. So you should be parasite free. Also, the parasites can hide other problems. So if you have worms and you go to deworm, perhaps the parasites were also eating coccidia, another type of infection that's not a worm. So now when you get rid of the worms, or let's even say their antibodies get rid of the worms, the coccidia now spreads and runs free. You want to get all of that out of them. Now, those parasites are eating the nutrients. They're not allowing the bearded dragon's intestinal tract to eat those nutrients. In fact, they're eating them. Whatever little amount they're eating them, they're still eating them. So a lot of the times with babies, if they have parasites, and if you've had a lot of bearded dragons, you may notice slow growth. If you're your first dragon, you don't know there's slow growth. And then you get rid of their parasites, all of a sudden their appetite spikes, their growth seems to explode because they are getting 100% of the nutrients. They're not splitting. So hopefully that makes sense. But you see it tossed around a lot of a healthy amount of parasites. Not true. Not true. There's just not enough parasites to make a noticeable problem. There still is a problem. The immune system is fighting them, weakening the dragon's energy, weakening the dragon's immune system, taking away some of the value of what they eat, and leaving them susceptible to a bigger problem. Get rid of them. Parasite free, deworm right away if you see parasites. And also, the easiest thing you can do is your own fecals. Guys, I get it. You want to go to a vet, but if you've got reptiles, by the time you go to a vet with a general exam, and by the time you do fecals, you could be at $200 something. You can get everything you need for probably unlimited fecals for under that. And it couldn't be easier to do fecals. In fact, most people in the Discord, I got a very in-depth tutorial. People have asked questions. Most people in the Discord do their own fecals. What does that allow you to do? Fecals whenever you think something's wrong. Fecals once a quarter. Fecals once a month. Fecals once a year. However much you want. It's so easy. It's not expensive. Most of the time, when you do your first fecal, you're either just under the cost of breaking even, you've broken even, or you've saved money. Because especially if you have any type of microscope already, you don't even need to buy that. So that's good. I will say, as a first-time bearded dragon parent, while Tech was hecking cute as a baby, I was always in panic mode over him. Yeah, it's isn't it? Okay, guys, if you let me hit this and I'll go. If you get your first lizard and you've not had a lizard before, these things, and you get a baby, a fresh baby, these things are small, most of them. They are tiny. Their arms are tiny. Their head, their face is so tiny. Their tail is so thin. And they just look fragile because they are. And then you look at them and they're sleeping like half off a platform, like they're dead. They look like roadkill. Their arms are spread out, and you wake up and you're in full panic. You're like, it's dead. It died. Why did it die? Well, it's not dead, but you're having a heart attack. And then you rush in there, and then you wake it up, and then it's pissed at you because it was just having a dream. It was having a good time. But if you've not been there, they look so fragile, and they sleep. They wedge themselves in a crack. It looks like they're being smushed. They're starfished out like they're just roadkill. It's scary. And then you see them climbing and they fall. You're like, dude, it's dead. It's broken. It's shattered every bone in its body. It's dead. No, it's just fine. In fact, and then it does it like 3 or 4 more times and it keeps doing it. And you're like, it's going to kill itself. It's going to kill itself. I remember when I had my Chinese water dragon and I put it in the bathtub to swim. It was like a baby. And, just a simple bathtub. I put it at the one end, and it swam at full speed and clunk, slammed its head. Just boom! Was swimming with its eyes open. It's a white bathtub. It's not clear. Just went boom, went lip, floated to the bottom. I'm like, it's killed itself. I'm like, even if that didn't snap its neck, it's knocked itself out. And it's underwater. So now it's just going to drown. It's knocked itself out underwater at best case scenario. Worst case scenario, it snapped its neck. Well, no, actually, it was fine, and it was mad that I picked it up out of the water. And it just hit its head, and then it just decided to lay there, basically. But how did I know that? Right? I'm like, the thing's dead. It's either dead or it's dying. I'm like, I'm gonna have to give it mouth to snoot. Like, what are we doing here? So it is. You can be very scared as a first time reptile thing. You'll panic about everything, but that can happen with people that's their first baby. Like you're sleeping and you hear your newborn just go like, make some noise in the middle of the night. You're awake. You're throwing on the light to the room. You're getting a flashlight. You heard some noises, even though they're just baby, and you're like, "What's wrong with the baby?" Well, nothing. But you're a parent now, and you're in panic mode over the littlest thing. So there we go. Yeah, sorry. Perfect example. I think everything was $100 for the supply. Very easy, very easy, very easy. You can make it cost a little bit more if you get a digital microscope that has a screen built into it. So it's a little easier to see rather than the ones you put your eyes through. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, $100 and you're doing fecals. Unlimited fecals. So at 2 fecals, you've saved money. And you can do fecals more often. Probably have enough for 50 tests. Yeah, and then, but the other thing was, after you do all those tests, when you have to rebuy supplies, you're not rebuying the microscope, which is the most expensive. You're buying like the little glass slides. That's like $5 for like 100 slides or something, which is 100 tests. Well, think about if a test, let's just say a test is $50. That's 50 times 100, $5,000 in vet tests. We're not doing that, right? So there's a big difference. The Discord group, yeah, yeah, it's actually great how many people do fecals now. It's just it's really great because I think people it's such an important thing to look at. Um, and not only do you see parasites or any of those problems, but what you also get to see is how they're digesting the food you feed them. So if you see a lot of a certain type of plant matter, they're not digesting it very well. If you see a lot of certain type of rodent undigested parts, maybe when they eat crickets, you see all the wings and all the legs, but when they eat dubias, you don't see any of that. So they're fully digested. So what's easier for them to digest. So there's a lot of other things. And yeah, people, if you have a digital one or you're able to put your camera up, you can post pictures of what you found and ask people their opinion. It's just the Discord's a great group, guys. $1 a month. That's the minimum. If you want to donate more, good for you. All of the money from YouTube and Patreon, it all goes to the reptiles, who cost me a big net negative every year, even with the donations. But thank you so much. And then I just supplement the rest. All right. She's been really good. I'm going to put her away. I'm going to take off for today. Hopefully, you guys have had a good stream. My normal spiel of leave a like on every video of mine you watch, and any comment that just says hi is fine. It helps. If you don't leave a like, YouTube thinks you didn't like it. Shocker. Okay, take care, guys. Have a good weekend. Guess where I'm going to be going? To talk to people in the Discord, because I'll be around for a little bit while I'm doing other things. Take it easy. What are we doing?